Hi, I'm Rachel Hammond, and I'm the management professor here in the business division. And the purpose of these videos are really to remind you of some of the concepts that you learned throughout your time here at Cornerstone, perhaps all the way back in your Principles of Management class, but throughout your time taking business courses, I'm sure you've come across some of these concepts. But as you work to apply them in the Strategic Management course, I thought it'd be a good reminder for some of the things that you learned at one point and maybe need a refresher. So this short video is about the four functions of management, and we think through them as planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So first of all, we have planning. And I thought I'd think about this in the context of, say Apple came to you and said they want you to open a store here on Cornerstone's campus. What are some of the things that you would need to think about? So first of all, like I said, planning, and this is the process of setting clear objectives in order to track whether or not you're achieving your goals. And this starts with the strategic planning process. You think through creating a mission statement, setting strategies that help you accomplish that mission statement, understanding what are the strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities, which we'll talk about later. But it's really understanding, looking forward, what is it that your organization, or your store in this case, is trying to accomplish? What are the sales goals that you're trying to meet? What are the marketing plans that you're going to do to help bring people in the store and get them excited about your products? And this is something that, as a manager, has to be very clear because it guides every other function that you will complete, whether it's your staffing, how you then maybe hold your staff accountable to what your objectives and your plans are. So planning is obviously the first and the most important step in the process. The second function is organizing, and organizing is the idea that you need to think through how you're going to allocate tasks and resources within your department, your organization, or your Apple store. So this is something as simple as thinking how your store will be physically organized, what products you will need to have to kind of organize your inventory, but often this comes in the form of thinking through staffing. So, from a human resources perspective, you think through what are the positions that you need as part of your store, how many managers, supervisors, greeters, people that do the tech side at the tech bar, what are the staff that you need, and then taking it one step further, when do you need them to work? So, what's the ratio of employees to the time of day, and thinking through that organizationally. Sometimes this idea of organizing shows itself very visually in an organizational chart, so that you can physically see how work is organized and responsibilities and that hierarchy, seeing who is in charge. And that helps people in your organization to know what their role is and what their position is and who they need to report to when there's an issue, and then who's responsible to them. So it helps them understand what their place is in the organization, and then as a manager, it helps you understand where people are and what their jobs are, and then it helps you to see, how you might need to make changes based on how that's then accomplishing your goals. The third function is leadership. I know we spend a lot of time talking about different functions of leadership and different theories of leadership, and really the idea is that you're attempting to influence people to do or believe something, and in the case of management, to accomplish your objectives. And there's a lot of different ways that you can approach leadership. I personally ascribe to a more situational leadership where you look at the capabilities of that person, the motivation of that person, and then adapt how you approach them based on those things. So if someone isn't very skilled and not very motivated, then I'm going to take a very directive approach to them. I'm going to give them very specific guidelines and follow up with them because I know that they need it. Someone that is very highly capable and very motivated, I can do a little bit more of a hands-off approach and let them do their work. So leadership is, there's a lot to think about. And then when you think about the motivation side, research has shown that if you just pass out money as the only motivator, that's not going to get you very far. And I really like what Daniel Pink has to say when he talks about three different components that motivate people. He says people like to have purpose so that they're contributing to something larger than themselves. They like autonomy, to be in charge of what their work looks like and how they do it. And then also mastery, that they're learning new things and that they are growing in their skills. And we can give them opportunities to do that. You think about running an Apple store, giving them the opportunity to learn how to do the tech side, or to run the back of the house or the inventory, or giving them incentives that lets them structure their work schedule, or gives them extra time off based on how they work. So thinking through how we motivate people is changes all the time. We have to think individually about each person. So a very interesting component to the management functions. The last one is controlling. And when we think about controlling, it's tracking, but then also responding to how effective your organization is being. So if you know that your sales goals are X and you're tracking all the way along and your store isn't meeting them, well, then what changes do you have to make? Do you need to change the makeup of your staff? Maybe the accessories aren't selling and you need to spend more time advertising or highlighting those in your store. Maybe you change your marketing strategies of how externally you market your products outside the store. And maybe sometimes controlling is looking at how your staff is actually doing their work, and sometimes that requires more education or training, or in some cases even disciplinary measures if they're just not doing the job. Because your goal as a manager is to accomplish those plans that you set when you went through that planning process. So if you're not accomplishing those, like that's your responsibility, right? So you need to make adjustments where you can to get you to where you need to be as a manager. So sometimes that requires different approaches, whether that's changing your objectives, changing your staffing, changing your leadership, how you motivate people, and perhaps giving some more clear guidelines for what you expect out of your employees. Management is an incredibly interesting topic, kind of thinking through so many components that go into that, and you'll be using all of these throughout strategic management and your simulation exercise, and so this is probably a really good refresher for you to think through what are some of the things that you will need to do as you manage your companies.